The doorbell rang at 1:02 a.m. Bastian Crowell froze mid-sentence, his phone pressed against his ear. Investors from Tokyo waiting for his answer about quarterly projections. The sound came again, twice, deliberate, insistent. He ended the call without explanation. Nobody rang his doorbell at this hour. Nobody rang his doorbell at all. The gate was locked, the security system armed. This neighborhood didn't tolerate strangers after dark, especially not in December, when frost made the streets glitter like broken promises under the streetlights. Bastian crossed the marble foyer, irritation rising with each step. Probably teenagers. Some prank. He called the police, let them handle it, get back to work. He yanked open the door. Warm light spilled across the porch. And there she stood, a little black girl, maybe 9 years old, maybe younger, her hair pulled back in 2 careful puffs that someone had spent time braiding. She wore a red dress with a white collar, the kind children wore to church or when they wanted to feel grown up. But the dress was wrinkled now, dirty at the hem. Her eyes were enormous, dark and steady and fixed on his face with an intensity that made him forget about the investors, the meeting, the empire that never slept. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. She didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there breathing hard, like she'd been running. Her small hand pointed back toward the dark street, fingers trembling slightly, as if someone might be following her. Bastian glanced past her shoulder. Nothing, just empty sidewalk and the glow of sensor lights from neighboring houses, all sealed tight against the cold. It's 1 in the morning, he said. I know. Her voice came out soft but clear, not crying, not begging, just certain. Where are your parents? She swallowed. I need to talk to you. About what? She didn't answer right away. Her gaze dropped to his expensive slippers, then back up to his face, calculating something, measuring whether he'd listen or shut the door. The wind picked up. Her thin shoulders hunched against the cold. Bastian felt something uncomfortable stir in his chest. Not pity exactly, more like confusion mixed with annoyance, mixed with a vague awareness that sending a child away at 1 a.m. might look bad if anyone found out. Does someone know you're here? He asked. No. You walked here alone? She nodded. From where? Across town. Bastian's jaw tightened. Across town meant at least 2 miles, maybe 3, through areas that weren't safe even during daylight. He thought about calling the police again, but something stopped him. The way she stood there. Not desperate, not dramatic, just waiting. Like she'd already made up her mind that this was her only option. What's your name? He asked. Nyla. Nyla what? Reed. The name didn't mean anything to him. He ran through mental files of employees, contractors, vendors. Nothing. He knew the names of board members, competitors, politicians who could affect his business. But not this child. I don't know you, he said. I know. Nyla's voice wavered just slightly. But you know my mama. Kind of. She works for you. At the building downtown. Bastian frowned. I have 2,000 employees. She's not really an employee. She cleans. At night. Contract labor. Outsourced through some agency whose name he couldn't remember. The kind of arrangement that kept payroll lean and benefits non-existent. He signed off on those budgets quarterly but never thought about the actual people pushing mops through empty conference rooms. If your mother has a workplace issue, she needs to file a complaint with HR, he said. I don't handle operational details personally. Nyla's expression didn't change. She just kept looking at him with those huge, tired eyes. I'm not here about my mama, she said quietly. I'm here about me. The words hung in the cold air between them. Bastian opened his mouth to respond, to say what, he didn't know. But before he could speak, Nyla took one small step forward. Please, she whispered. I need to tell you something before it's too late. What do you think Nyla came to tell him at 1 a.m.? Drop your thoughts below. Bastian Crowell believed in 3 things: time, money, and leverage. Everything else was noise. He'd built Crowell Logistics from nothing. A single warehouse in Newark to a nationwide operation that moved freight faster than any competitor. 42 distribution centers. 3,000 trucks. Revenue that made analysts revise their estimates every quarter. The secret wasn't brilliance. It was elimination. Eliminate downtime. Eliminate waste. Eliminate people who couldn't keep up. His mornings started at 4:30 a.m. with black coffee and spreadsheets. He reviewed overnight shipping logs while most people were still asleep. By 6 a.m., he'd already fired off 20 emails flagging inefficiencies, demanding explanations, cutting costs that other executives would have missed. He didn't take vacations, didn't attend office parties, didn't remember birthdays. His vice president once asked him, "Don't you ever just relax?" Bastian had looked at her like she'd suggested setting money on fire. "Relaxation is what happens to companies before they collapse," he'd said. She never asked again. The morning after Nyla appeared at his door, Bastian sat in his corner office on the 43rd floor, watching the sun rise over the Hudson River. He hadn't slept, just stood in his foyer for 20 minutes after she left, staring at the closed door, trying to understand what had just happened. A child, at 1 a.m., asking to be seen. He should have called the authorities immediately, should have documented everything, should have protected himself from whatever liability might follow. Instead, he'd listened, and now he couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said. His assistant knocked twice before entering. Monica Rivera had worked for him for 6 years, longer than anyone else in the company. She knew when to speak and when to stay silent. Right now, she stayed silent, just set his coffee down and turned to leave. "Monica," he said. She paused. "Yes, the cleaning staff. They're contracted, right?" Monica blinked. In 6 years, he'd never asked about cleaning staff. "Through Apex Facility Services," she said. "They handle all our janitorial needs across 12 locations." "How much do we pay them?" "Apex? I'd have to check the contract. Around $400,000 annually, I think." "Not Apex, the actual cleaners. How much do they make?" Monica shifted her weight slightly. "I don't know. That's Apex's internal matter. We just pay the invoice." "Find out, sir. Find out how much they earn per hour. Find out how many people work our building. Find out." He stopped himself, took a breath. "Just get me everything. Contracts, schedules, personnel records if Apex keeps them. I want it by noon." Monica nodded slowly. "Is there a problem?" "I don't know yet." She left without another word. Bastian turned back to the window. Below him, the city stretched out in perfect grid patterns. Streets full of people rushing to jobs they hated, earning money they needed, trapped in systems they didn't design. He'd always believed those systems worked, that efficiency created prosperity, that if you removed emotion from business decisions, everyone benefited. Now he wasn't sure. His phone buzzed. Text from his attorney. "Board meeting at 2 p.m. Merger vote. Don't be late." Right? The merger. 6 months of negotiations coming to a head. If it went through, Crowell Logistics would absorb a West Coast competitor and double its market share overnight. Stock price would soar. He'd be untouchable. He should have been focused on that. Only that. Instead, he kept seeing a little girl in a red dress, standing on his porch in the dark. At 11:47 a.m., Monica returned with a manila folder 2 inches thick. "Everything I could find," she said, setting it on his desk. Bastian opened it. The Apex Facility Services contract was straightforward. Fixed monthly fee, no benefits, no overtime provisions. Cleaning crews worked 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., 5 nights a week. He flipped through personnel records. Most were incomplete, just first names and employee ID numbers. No social security information, no addresses, no emergency contacts. One name caught his eye: Nyla Reed. Nyla's mother. There was almost nothing in her file. Hired 8 months ago. Assigned to the downtown corporate office. Attendance marked irregular, with a note from the supervisor. Medical issues. Performance declining. No follow-up. No support, just a notation that she'd been warned twice about incomplete shifts. Bastian kept reading. He found something else. A second name attached to the same employee ID. Nyla Reed, minor, unpaid. Unpaid, minor. His hands went cold. He flipped to the supervisor's reports. There it was, buried in the October summary, utilizing family assistance to complete workload. No additional cost to client. Family assistance. They'd been using a child to finish cleaning jobs and billing it as efficiency. Bastian's throat tightened. He read the name of the supervisor who'd filed the report. Clifford Hale. He didn't recognize it. Probably middle management at Apex. Someone who'd figured out how to cut corners and look good doing it. His phone buzzed again. The board meeting. 30 minutes. He should have closed the folder. Should have focused on the merger. Should have let HR handle this through proper channels. But he couldn't stop staring at that line. Nyla Reed, minor, unpaid. His door opened without warning. Daniel Torrance, his CFO, leaned in. "We need you downstairs," Daniel said. "They're setting up for the vote. Give me 5 minutes." "Bastian, we can't." 5 minutes. Daniel's jaw tightened, but he left. Bastian picked up his phone and dialed Monica. "Get me Clifford Hale," he said. "I want him in my office tomorrow morning. First thing." "Hale from Apex?" "Yes." "Should I notify their corporate liaison first?" "No, just Hale. And Monica, don't tell him why." He ended the call before she could ask questions. Then he stood, straightened his tie, and headed downstairs to vote on a merger worth $300 million. But all he could think about was a red dress and tired eyes and a system he'd built without ever asking who paid the real cost. Do you think Bastian will actually do something? Or just move on? Comment below. Nyla Reed learned to be invisible when she was 7. That was the year her father left. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't leave a note. Just stopped coming home after his shift at the bus depot. Her mama cried for 2 weeks straight, then dried her eyes and went looking for work. Being invisible helped. When adults argued about bills, Nyla disappeared into the corner with her homework. When her mama came home exhausted from double shifts, Nyla already had dinner waiting. Canned soup, crackers, whatever they had. She learned to need less, ask for less, be less, small and quiet and easy to forget. It worked until her mama got sick. The cough started in September, just a tickle at first. Then it got deeper, wetter. By October, her mama couldn't make it through a full shift without stopping to catch her breath. The emergency room doctor said pneumonia, prescribed antibiotics, said rest. But rest didn't pay rent, so her mama kept working. And when she couldn't finish her routes at the corporate building downtown, Nyla followed. "Just this once," her mama had whispered. "Just until I'm better." That was 6 weeks ago. Now Nyla knew the corporate building better than she knew her own school. She knew which conference rooms had the most trash, which bathrooms needed the most scrubbing, which hallways the cameras didn't cover. She knew the freight elevator that rattled, the supply closet that smelled like lemons and old mop water, the 43rd floor, where the light stayed on all night in one corner office. That was Mr. Crowell's office. The man who owned everything. Nyla had seen him exactly twice. Once through the glass walls, talking on the phone, pacing like a tiger in a zoo. Once in the lobby, walking past her without looking, trailing assistants who scrambled to keep up. He didn't seem mean, just gone. Like his body was there, but his mind was somewhere else entirely. She'd never spoken to him. Never thought she would. Until Clifford Hale started giving her extra work. It happened slowly. First, he asked her to carry a trash bag her mama couldn't lift. Then to wipe down a conference table while her mama rested. Then to organize the supply closet real quick. "You're good at this," Clifford said, smiling. "Fast, efficient, better than some adults." Nyla's mama didn't like it. Said Nyla should be home, should be sleeping, should be doing kid things. But Clifford pulled her mama aside one night, spoke in a low voice Nyla couldn't quite hear. When the conversation ended, her mama's face looked gray. After that, her mama stopped protesting, and Nyla worked harder. She learned to clean faster than grown-ups, learned which shortcuts save time, learned how to make a dirty room look perfect in half an hour. Clifford started assigning her whole sections. The third floor, the executive washrooms, the kitchen areas. "Your mama's lucky to have you," he'd say. "Real lucky." At first, Nyla felt proud, useful, like she was helping. Then she started falling asleep in class. Her teacher, Ms. Janelle Robinson, noticed first, called Nyla up after math one day, concern creasing her forehead. "You okay, baby?" Ms. Robinson asked gently. Nyla nodded, too tired to explain. "You've been falling behind, missing assignments. That's not like you." "I'm fine." "Nyla, I'm fine." Ms. Robinson let it go. But her eyes stayed worried. Nyla's grades slipped. Reading comprehension, math tests, history projects she used to love. Everything blurred together in a fog of exhaustion. Her best friend, Amara, asked why she never came over anymore. "Just busy," Nyla said. "Busy with what?" "Stuff." Amara stopped asking. By November, Nyla was working 5 nights a week, sometimes 6. Her mama's condition wasn't improving. The medicine wasn't working fast enough. The doctor bills kept coming. And Clifford kept smiling. "You're a natural," he told her one night, watching her scrub baseboards in the executive lounge. "Honestly, you work harder than half the adults on my crew." Nyla didn't respond, just kept scrubbing. "I'm putting you down for the holiday overtime," Clifford continued. "Christmas week, double shifts. That okay?" It wasn't a question. Nyla looked up at him. He was tall, thin, wore cheap suits that didn't fit right. His eyes were pale blue and empty, like windows to a room with nothing inside. "What about my mama?" Nyla asked quietly. "What about her?" "She needs to rest." Clifford crouched down, put his hand on Nyla's shoulder. His fingers were cold through her thin sweater. "Your mama needs this job," he said softly. "You understand that, right? If she can't do the work, well, there's lots of people who can." Nyla understood. "So you keep helping, and I keep her on the schedule. Deal?" Nyla nodded. Clifford squeezed her shoulder once, then stood and walked away, humming something off-key. That night, Nyla almost fell asleep standing up. She was mopping the hallway outside the break room when her vision went blurry. Her knees buckled. She caught herself on the mop handle just before hitting the floor. "Breathe, just breathe." She finished her section, hauled the mop bucket back to the supply closet, helped her mama down to the parking lot. They rode the bus home in silence. Her mama's head rested against the window, breath fogging the glass. Nyla stared at her own reflection. Small, tired, invisible. She wondered if anyone would notice if she just disappeared completely. At school the next day, she almost collapsed during gym class. The coach sent her to the nurse. The nurse took her temperature, checked her pulse, asked questions Nyla didn't answer. "You need rest," the nurse said. "And food. When's the last time you ate a real meal?" Nyla couldn't remember. The nurse sent her back to class with a granola bar and a note to her mama. Nyla threw the note away before getting on the bus. That evening, she stood in the corporate building lobby, waiting for the freight elevator. Her red dress, the one she wore when she needed to feel brave, was wrinkled. She'd worn it to school, wore it to work, would wear it tomorrow too, probably. The elevator doors opened. Inside stood a woman in an expensive coat, holding a briefcase. She glanced at Nyla, then away, like looking at empty space. Nyla stepped inside. The woman got off on the 5th floor without saying a word. The elevator kept rising. 37th floor, 40th, 43rd. The doors opened onto the executive level. The lights were harsh up here. Everything smelled like carpet cleaner and money. Nyla wheeled her cart down the hallway, past glass offices with leather chairs and views of the river. She stopped outside Mr. Crowell's office. The lights were on. He was there, bent over his desk, surrounded by papers and glowing screens. For just a second, Nyla wondered what would happen if she knocked. If she walked in and told him what was happening. If she explained that Clifford was making her work like an adult. That her mama was sick. That nobody was checking. That she was 9 years old and so tired. But she didn't knock. Because Clifford's voice echoed in her head. Your mama needs this job. So Nyla kept walking. She cleaned the kitchen, the conference rooms, the executive bathrooms. At midnight, she saw Clifford near the loading dock, smoking a cigarette and talking on his phone. She's cheap labor, he said, laughing. And quiet. Crowell doesn't care. As long as the building's clean and the numbers look good. Nyla froze behind a column. Cheap. The word settled into her chest like ice. Clifford kept talking. Honestly, I could run half the crew with kids if I wanted. They work harder. Don't complain. It's genius. He laughed again. Nyla stood very still. She didn't cry, didn't scream, just stood there, letting the words sink deeper. Cheap, that was what she was worth. When Clifford finished his call and walked back inside, Nyla stayed behind the column for a long time. She thought about her mama, about the bills, about Clifford's threats, and she thought about the orientation video they'd watched months ago. The one with Mr. Crowell's face on the screen, saying in a smooth, confident voice, "At Crowell Logistics, we believe in integrity, accountability, and an open door. If something doesn't feel right, my door is always open. My door is always open." Nyla had believed him. Maybe she still did. Maybe she had to, because nobody else was listening. Should Nyla trust him? Or is she making a terrible mistake? Let us know what you think. Clifford Hale learned early that people didn't pay attention. They saw what they wanted to see, heard what they wanted to hear. As long as the surfaces looked clean, literally and figuratively, nobody dug deeper. That was how he'd lasted 7 years at Apex Facility Services without anyone noticing what he really did. He wasn't stupid. He kept records, followed procedures, submitted reports on time. His numbers always looked good. His crews finished shifts on schedule. Clients never complained. And if corners got cut behind the scenes, if labor laws bent until they almost snapped, if a few kids helped their parents finish jobs nobody could complete alone, well, nobody checked. Clifford didn't think of himself as cruel, just practical. The world ran on cheap labor, everyone knew it. Restaurants, construction, agriculture. Someone had to do the work nobody else wanted, for wages nobody else would accept. He was just making the system more efficient. The Reed situation was perfect. The mother was desperate, sick, broke, terrified of losing her job. The daughter was small, quick, eager to help. Together, they could cover twice the territory in half the time. All Clifford had to do was make sure they stayed quiet. He'd done it before. Other families, other arrangements. Some lasted a few weeks. Some lasted months. Eventually, people moved on, got better jobs, disappeared, and Clifford found new people. The Tuesday after Thanksgiving, he stood in the Crowell Logistics corporate building, watching Nyla Reed mop the executive hallway. She was getting slower, clumsier, dark circles under her eyes, shoulders slumped. He'd need to replace her soon, before someone noticed. But not yet. Holiday season was coming. Double the trash, double the workload. He needed everybody he could get. "Nyla," he called. She flinched but didn't stop mopping. "Come here." She set the mop down and walked over, hands clasped in front of her. Obedient, exhausted. "How's your mama?" he asked. "Okay." "She coming in tonight?" "She's resting." Clifford smiled. "Good. She needs to get better. Can't have her missing more shifts." Nyla said nothing. "So tonight you'll handle the 3rd floor and the executive level. I'll get Marcus to cover the rest." "That's too much," Nyla said quietly. "You've done it before." "I'm tired." Clifford's smile didn't change. "We're all tired, sweetheart. That's life. I have a test tomorrow. Then you better work fast so you can get home and study." Nyla's jaw tightened. For a second, Clifford saw something flicker in her eyes. Anger, maybe. Defiance. Then it faded. She nodded. "Good girl," Clifford said, patting her head like a dog. He walked away, already thinking about the staffing reports he needed to submit. The numbers had to stay clean. Client retention depended on it. And Crowell Logistics was his biggest account. Losing them would tank his performance reviews. His phone buzzed. Text from his supervisor at Apex. "Corporate wants updated personnel records by Friday. Make sure everything's clean." Clifford deleted the text. Everything was clean. It always was. He spent the rest of the shift in the loading dock office, filling out fake time cards. The system was simple. Log adults for hours they didn't work. Split the wages with them off the books. Pocket the difference. Nobody audited janitorial services. Too boring. Too low-level. Perfect. Around midnight, he stepped outside for a smoke. Cold air bit his face. He lit up, scrolling through his phone, checking sports scores. Someone walked past in the parking lot. Probably another cleaner heading home early. He didn't look up. Didn't notice Nyla standing behind the column 20 feet away. Listening, he took a drag and dialed his buddy Marcus. "Yeah, it's me," Clifford said when Marcus picked up. "Listen, I got that Reed girl covering executive tonight. She's cheap labor, works like a dog, and quiet. Crowell doesn't care. As long as the building's clean and the numbers look good." Marcus laughed on the other end, said something Clifford agreed with. "Honestly," Clifford continued, "I could run half the crew with kids if I wanted. They work harder, don't complain, don't know their rights. It's genius." He laughed, flicked ash onto the pavement. "Yeah, man, easy money." He finished the call, finished his cigarette, walked back inside, already planning next month's schedule. He didn't see Nyla pressed against the column, face blank, fists clenched. Didn't see the moment something inside her broke. The next morning, Clifford got a call from Monica Rivera. "Mr. Hale," she said, voice crisp and professional. "Mr. Crowell would like to meet with you tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. His office." Clifford frowned. "What's this about?" He didn't say. "Please confirm your attendance." Sure. Yeah. I'll be there. Thank you." She hung up. Clifford stared at his phone. Crowell wanted to meet. Personally, that was unusual. CEOs didn't deal with contractors directly. That's what middle management was for. Maybe it was a promotion. Maybe Crowell wanted to expand the contract. Add more buildings, more revenue. Yeah, that had to be it. Clifford smiled. He spent the rest of the day running numbers, preparing a pitch. If Crowell wanted to talk expansion, Clifford would be ready. He'd show cost savings, efficiency gains, testimonials. By evening, he felt confident. He was good at this, always had been. People didn't pay attention, and he made sure they never had to. That night, Nyla Reed didn't show up for her shift. Clifford called her mother's phone. No answer. He cursed under his breath. Sent Marcus to cover the executive floor. Fine. If the Reeds wanted to quit, let them. He'd find someone else. He always did. But a small voice in the back of his mind whispered something uncomfortable. She'd been listening that night, when he was on the phone. Nah, she was just a kid. What could she do? Still, the unease lingered. Clifford locked up early, drove home, poured a drink. Tomorrow he'd meet with Crowell, get clarity, maybe even get praise. Everything was fine. Everything was always fine. What do you think Crowell's going to do when he meets Clifford? Drop your predictions below. Nyla stood outside Bastian Crowell's house for 10 minutes before ringing the doorbell. The street was silent. No cars, no people, just rows of perfect houses with perfect lawns and lights that glowed warm behind curtains she'd never be invited past. Her mama was home, asleep, the medicine finally working, breathing easier. Nyla had tucked the blankets around her, left a note on the counter. Went for a walk, be back soon. She didn't explain where, didn't say why, because if her mama knew what Nyla was about to do, she'd stop her, and Nyla couldn't be stopped anymore. The walk across town took 40 minutes. through neighborhoods that got quieter and richer with every block, past the bus depot where her father used to work, past the corner store where they bought groceries on sale, past the elementary school where she used to get good grades, past everything that used to matter. Now she stood on a porch that probably cost more than her entire apartment building. Her red dress was wrinkled, her shoes scuffed, her hands cold. She thought about Clifford's voice on the phone. Cheap labor. Crowell doesn't care. She thought about the orientation video. My door is always open. One of those things was true. Nyla hoped she'd picked the right one. She pressed the doorbell. Once, twice, waited. Footsteps inside. Heavy, deliberate. The door opened, and there he was. Bastian Crowell. Tall, sharp-featured, wearing expensive clothes even at 1 a.m. His eyes, gray, cold, distracted, settled on her with confusion. "It's 1 in the morning," he said. "I know." He looked past her, searching for parents, for explanations. "Where are your parents?" "I need to talk to you," Nyla said. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. She pointed back toward the dark street, a small gesture that made her hand tremble. Bastian frowned, opened his mouth, closed it. "About what?" he finally asked. Nyla met his eyes. She'd practiced this part. What she'd say, how she'd explain. But now, standing in his doorway with warm light spilling around her and the cold biting her shoulders, all the words disappeared. She just said, "Please." Something in her voice must have reached him, because instead of closing the door, instead of calling someone, instead of sending her away, he stepped aside. "Come in," he said quietly. Inside, the house felt huge. Marble floors, high ceilings, furniture that looked like it belonged in museums. Nyla stood in the foyer, suddenly aware of how small she was, how dirty her shoes were, how out of place. Bastian closed the door, stood there watching her, arms crossed. "You said your name is Nyla Reed." "Yes, and your mother works for me. For Apex. They clean your building, right?" He paused. "So what's this about?" Nyla's throat tightened. This was it. The moment she'd walked across town for. The moment she'd stayed awake planning. The moment she'd risked everything for. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Bastian's expression softened slightly. Not kind exactly, but less cold. "Take your time," he said. Nyla swallowed. Then she started talking. She told him about her mama getting sick, about following her to work, about Clifford assigning her tasks, just small ones at first, then bigger, then entire floors. She told him about the threats, the warnings, the way Clifford smiled when he said her mama was lucky to have her. She told him about falling asleep in class, failing tests, losing friends, and then she told him about the phone call. "He said I was cheap labor," Nyla whispered. "He said you didn't care." Bastian's face went very still. "And he said nobody was checking, that as long as the building looked clean, it didn't matter how." Silence filled the room. Nyla waited. Bastian walked to a side table, picked up a tablet, started scrolling, his jaw tight, fingers moving fast. Minutes passed. Nyla stood frozen, afraid to move, afraid he'd change his mind, afraid he'd call someone to take her away. Finally, Bastian looked up. His eyes weren't cold anymore. They were something worse, furious, but not at her. "How long has this been happening?" he asked. 6 weeks, maybe more, and nobody stopped it. It wasn't a question. Nyla shook her head. Bastian set the tablet down, ran a hand through his hair. For the first time since she'd arrived, he looked uncertain. "Why didn't you tell someone sooner?" he asked quietly. "I tried, but Clifford said if I talked, my mama would get fired. And we need the money, for medicine, for rent, for everything. So you stayed silent." "I thought," Nyla's voice cracked, "I thought if I worked harder, I'd be worth noticing." The words hung in the air. Bastian stared at her, really stared, like he was seeing her for the first time. And then he did something Nyla didn't expect. He sat down, right there on the floor of his expensive foyer. I level with her. "You are worth noticing," he said. "And I didn't see you." Nyla blinked. "I should have," Bastian continued. "I built systems that made it easy not to look, easy not to ask questions, easy to pretend everything was fine as long as the numbers were clean." His voice shook, not with anger now, with something else. Shame. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Nyla didn't know what to say. Bastian stood, picked up his phone, started dialing. "What are you doing?" Nyla asked. "Calling my attorney, then my head of security, then everyone else who should have stopped this." "But you did the right thing coming here," Bastian said. "And I'm going to fix this. All of it." He paused, met her eyes. "Starting tomorrow, will Bastian actually follow through? Or will the system protect itself? Comment what you think happens next." Clifford Hale walked into Bastian Crowell's office at 9:02 a.m. wearing his best suit and a smile that had convinced dozens of supervisors he was trustworthy. The smile died the second he saw Bastian's face. Two other people sat in the corner. A woman in a dark blazer with a legal pad. A man in a security uniform with a camera pointed at Clifford. "Sit down," Bastian said. "Not Mr. Hale. Not a handshake. Just sit down." Clifford's stomach dropped, but he recovered fast. Smiled again. Smaller this time. "Good morning, Mr. Crowell. I appreciate you taking the time to. How long have you been using children to complete cleaning contracts?" The question hit like a fist. Clifford blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "Children. Minors. Unpaid labor." Bastian's voice was flat, cold. "How long?" "I don't know what you're talking about." Bastian slid a folder across the desk. "These are your personnel reports, October through November. You logged a minor named Nyla Reed as unpaid family assistance. She worked 5 nights a week, sometimes 6. Clifford's throat went dry. That's a misunderstanding. Her mother was sick. The girl just helped carry things. Light tasks. She cleaned 3 floors by herself. She wanted to help. She's 9 years old." Clifford opened his mouth, closed it, tried a different approach. "Look, Mr. Crowell, I understand how this looks, but these families, they're struggling. The mother couldn't finish shifts. I was trying to be compassionate, keep her employed. By exploiting her daughter, that's not. You threatened to fire the mother if the child didn't work." Clifford's pulse hammered. "Who told you that?" Bastian leaned forward. "Does it matter?" "Yes, it mattered. Because if the Reed girl talked, if she kept talking, everything would unravel. 7 years of arrangements, other families, other jobs." "This is a misunderstanding," Clifford said again, forcing calm into his voice. "I can explain everything." "Then explain this." Bastian tapped his tablet. A recording played. Clifford's own voice filled the room. "She's cheap labor, works like a dog, and quiet. Crowell doesn't care. As long as the building's clean and the numbers look good." The blood drained from Clifford's face. "I could run half the crew with kids if I wanted. They work harder. Don't complain. It's genius." The recording stopped. Silence crushed the room. Clifford tried to speak. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. Bastian stood. "You're terminated. Effective immediately. Wait. Security will escort you out. You're banned from all Crowell properties." "Mr. Crowell, please." "The police have been notified. Labor violations. Fraud. Child endangerment." Clifford's legs went weak. "This is insane. You can't." "I already did." The security guard stepped forward, hand on Clifford's elbow. "Get your hands off me," Clifford snapped, jerking away. But the guard didn't let go, just pulled him toward the door. "You'll regret this," Clifford spat, looking back at Bastian. "You have no idea what you're doing." Bastian's expression didn't change. "I know exactly what I'm doing." The door closed. Clifford was gone. The woman with the legal pad stood. "I'll file the formal complaints within the hour." "Do it," Bastian said. She left. Bastian stood alone in his office, staring at the closed door. His hands were shaking, not from anger, from the weight of what he'd just learned. Clifford wasn't the only one. The reports made that clear. Other supervisors, other contracts, a system built to hide exploitation behind clean paperwork and polite language. And Bastian had signed off on all of it. Not directly, not knowingly, but that didn't matter. He'd built the machine, and the machine hurt children. His phone buzzed. Text from Monica. Apex Corporate is calling. They want a meeting. Bastian deleted the text. He didn't care what Apex wanted. He picked up his phone and dialed his attorney. Terminate the Apex contract, he said when she answered. All locations. Effective immediately. That's 12 buildings, Bastian. We'll need replacement services within. I don't care. End it. The board will push back. Let them. He ended the call. Then he made another, and another. By noon, the Apex contract was dead, the outsourcing program suspended, an internal audit scheduled. By 2 p.m., Bastian had drafted a public statement. His PR team begged him not to release it, said it would hurt the stock price, invite lawsuits, make the company look negligent. He released it anyway. The statement was short, direct, no spin. Crowell Logistics recently discovered serious labor violations within our contracted cleaning services. A child was exploited under our watch. We failed to see it. We failed to stop it. That ends now. We are terminating all outsourcing contracts, conducting a full audit, and implementing new protections. This should never have happened, and it will never happen again. The media picked it up within minutes. By evening, it was everywhere. Some praised him, called it accountability. Others attacked, called it performative. Too little, too late. Bastian didn't read the comments. He just sat in his office, staring at the city below, wondering how many other Nylas were out there. How many doors were still closed? Do you think one apology is enough? Or does real change take more? Let us know below. Nyla didn't go to school the day after visiting Bastian's house. She stayed home with her mama, who was finally strong enough to sit up without coughing. They watched morning television together, ate toast, didn't talk much. Then the news broke. Her mama's phone rang. A friend from church, then another, then the landlord, then someone from Apex. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. Did you hear what happened? Did you see the statement? Was that your daughter? Her mama didn't answer most of the calls, just sat on the couch, staring at the television, tears rolling down her face. Baby, she whispered. What did you do? Nyla didn't know how to explain. She just wanted someone to listen. Now the whole world was listening. By afternoon, reporters were calling, knocking on their apartment door. Her mama unplugged the phone, locked the deadbolt, closed the curtains. They sat in the dim living room, quiet and afraid. Are we in trouble? Nyla asked. Her mama pulled her close. No, baby, you're not in trouble. Are you mad? No. Her mama's voice cracked. I'm proud, and I'm sorry. For what? For not protecting you. Nyla buried her face in her mama's shoulder. They stayed like that until the knocking stopped. 3 days later, a car pulled up outside their building. Not a reporter, not the police. Bastian Crowell. He knocked once, quiet, respectful. Nyla's mama opened the door a crack, eyes wary. Mrs. Reed, Bastian said. I'd like to talk, if that's okay. Her mama hesitated. I'm not here to cause problems, he continued. I owe you both an apology, a real one. Her mama looked back at Nyla, then opened the door. Bastian stepped inside. The apartment was small, cramped, nothing like his house, but he didn't comment on it, didn't look around with judgment. He just stood there, hands in his pockets, looking uncomfortable in a way Nyla had never seen before. I'm sorry, he said. Her mama crossed her arms. For what, exactly? For building a system that hurt your family. For not asking the right questions. For signing contracts that made it easy to ignore people like you. People like me, her mama repeated slowly. I didn't mean. I know what you meant. Her mama's voice was sharp. You meant poor, invisible, replaceable. Bastian flinched but didn't argue. You're right, he said quietly. And I'm sorry. Silence filled the room. An apology doesn't pay medical bills, her mama said. I know. Doesn't fix what happened to my daughter. I know. So what are you doing here? Bastian reached into his jacket, pulled out an envelope, set it on the table. This is a check. Enough to cover your medical expenses, and rent, and anything else you need for the next year. Her mama stared at the envelope like it might explode. I'm also setting up an education fund for Nyla, Bastian continued. Full tuition, books, everything, through college. Why? Her mama asked. Because it's the right thing to do, or because it makes you look good. Bastian met her eyes. Maybe both, but mostly because your daughter walked across town at 1 a.m. to tell me the truth. And that took more courage than I've ever had. He looked at Nyla. You saved other kids, he said. You know that, right? The audit found 3 other families. Similar situations. It's over now. Because you spoke up. Nyla didn't know what to say. Her mama picked up the envelope, opened it. Her hands shook. This is too much, she whispered. It's not enough, Bastian said. But it's a start. He turned to leave, stopped at the door. I'm changing company policy, he said. No more outsourcing labor that we should be doing ourselves. Better wages, better protections. It won't fix everything, but it's something. Her mama nodded slowly. Bastian left. The door closed behind him. Nyla's mama sat down, stared at the check. Then she started crying. Not sad tears, something else. Relief, hope, exhaustion. Nyla climbed onto the couch beside her, held her mama's hand. Is it over? Nyla asked. Her mama kissed her forehead. Yeah, baby, it's over. But outside, in the hallway, Bastian stood for a long moment before walking away. Because he knew something her mama didn't. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Can money and policy really fix what was broken? Tell us what you think in the comments. The board meeting happened 2 weeks later. Bastian walked into the conference room knowing he'd face resistance. The members were already seated, arms crossed, expressions tight. Daniel Torrance, the CFO, spoke first. You cost us $4 million. Bastian sat down. I know. The Apex termination, the public statement, the audit. Stock price dropped 6%. I know. And now you want to bring janitorial services in-house. Full benefits. Union wages. That's another $2 million annually. Yes. Daniel leaned forward. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. That's not a business strategy. It is now. Silence fell across the table. Margaret Chen, the board chair, cleared her throat. Bastian, we understand your intentions, but this company has shareholders, responsibilities. We can't make decisions based on emotion. This isn't emotion, Bastian said. It's accountability. It's expensive accountability. Then we'll find the money somewhere else. Where? Daniel demanded. We're not a charity. Bastian pulled out a folder, slid copies across the table. These are the numbers. Yes, in-house labor costs more upfront, but turnover drops, productivity rises. We avoid lawsuits, and we build a reputation that attracts better talent. That's long-term speculation, someone muttered. It's investment, Bastian corrected. In people, in trust, in doing business the right way. Margaret studied the documents. And if the shareholders push back, then I'll buy them out. The room went silent. Daniel stared. You can't be serious. I'm entirely serious. You'd risk your position over cleaning staff? Bastian met his eyes. I'd risk my position over doing the right thing. And if that's a problem, find a new CEO. Nobody spoke. Margaret set down the documents, looked around the table. All in favor of Bastian's proposal? 3 hands went up. then 2 more, then the rest. Motion passes, Margaret said quietly. Bastian exhaled. The meeting continued. Budget adjustments, timeline discussions, implementation strategies. But the core decision was made. Crowell Logistics would change. Not because it was easy, because it was necessary. After the meeting, Bastian returned to his office. Monica was waiting. "There's someone here to see you," she said. "Who?" "Nyla Reed." Bastian's heart skipped. He found her in the lobby, still small, still wearing that red dress, but standing taller now, eyes brighter. Her mama stood beside her. "Mr. Crowell," her mama said. "Nyla wanted to thank you." Bastian crouched down. "I level with Nyla." "You don't need to thank me," he said. "You did the hard part." Nyla smiled, small but real. "I wanted to give you something," she said. She handed him a folded piece of paper. Bastian opened it. A drawing, crayon on notebook paper, 2 figures standing in a doorway, one tall, one small, light spilling between them. At the bottom, in careful handwriting, "Thank you for listening." Bastian's throat tightened. "I'll keep this," he said quietly. "Forever." Nyla nodded. Her mama touched her shoulder. "We should go." They turned to leave. "Mrs. Reed," Bastian called. She looked back. "If you ever need anything," he said, "my door really is open now." She smiled. "I believe you." They left. Bastian stood alone in the lobby, holding a crayon drawing, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Not pride, not success, purpose. That night, he walked the floors of the corporate building, all 43 of them. He stopped in break rooms, asked janitors their names, listened to their stories. He met Darius, who'd been cleaning offices for 12 years. Met Shanice, who worked 2 jobs to support her kids. Met Jerome, who dreamed of opening a restaurant someday. He learned their names, remembered their faces, and when someone mentioned being tired or sick or struggling, he asked what they needed, not what the company needed, what they needed. It didn't fix everything, didn't erase the past, but it was a start. Is this enough? Or does real change require more than one person caring? Comment below. 6 months later, Nyla stood on stage at the Cedar Ridge Community Center. Lights bright overhead, rows of people watching, news cameras in the back. She wore her red dress, clean now, pressed, still her favorite. Her mama sat in the front row, smiling through tears. Bastian Crowell sat beside her. The event was called Voices That Matter, a forum for workers to share stories, to speak truth, to demand change. Nyla had been invited to open it. She stepped up to the microphone, hands shaking slightly. "My name is Nyla Reed," she said, "and I'm 10 years old." Her voice echoed through the room. "Last year, I worked nights cleaning a corporate building. I was 9. I was tired. I was invisible." She paused, looked at the crowd. "But I'm not invisible anymore." Applause rippled through the audience. Nyla kept talking. She told her story, not for sympathy, not for fame. To remind people that silence protects systems, and speaking up breaks them. When she finished, the room stood. Bastian clapped the loudest. After the event, Nyla found Bastian outside. "You did good," he said. "Thanks." They stood in comfortable silence, watching people leave, watching the world keep turning. "Mr. Crowell?" Nyla asked. "Yeah. Do you think things will really change?" He considered the question. Honest. "I don't know," he said, "but I think they can, if enough people care." "Do you care?" "Yes." Nyla smiled. "Good." She turned to go, stopped. "Oh, I have something for you." She handed him another drawing. This one showed a building, lights on in every window, people inside smiling, working, seen. At the bottom, "What happens when doors stay open?" Bastian held the drawing carefully. "I'll put this next to the other one," he said. "In your office?" "In my office." Nyla nodded, satisfied. Her mama called from the parking lot. "Time to go." Nyla waved goodbye and ran off. red dress swirling. Bastian watched her go. Then he looked at the drawing again. What happens when doors stay open? Maybe that was the question everyone should be asking. The next Monday, Bastian launched the Crowell Worker Protection Initiative. Independent audits, anonymous reporting, direct hotlines. He hired advocates, reformed contracts, open channels for workers to speak without fear. It wasn't perfect. Some companies refused to follow. Some workers stayed silent, afraid of retaliation. But slowly things shifted. Other CEOs noticed. Some mocked him. Some copied him. Didn't matter. What mattered was that children stopped working night shifts. Families stopped living in fear. And people like Nyla, people who'd been invisible, started being seen. A year after that night at 1 a.m., Bastian received a letter from a woman in Ohio. Her daughter had been working warehouse night shifts at 12 years old. Threatened. Exploited. "I saw what you did," the letter said, "so I spoke up too. And they listened. Thank you." Bastian folded the letter, put it in his desk, beside 2 crayon drawings. And every time he felt tired, every time he wanted to go back to caring only about profits, he looked at those drawings and remembered, do you think this kind of change can last? Or will the system just find new ways to hide? Share your thoughts below. 3 years later, Nyla Reed stood in Bastian Crowell's office. Not as a victim, not as a symbol, as an intern. She was 13 now, taller, confident, still wore red sometimes, but not out of fear, out of choice. The internship was part of a program Bastian had started. Pathways Forward, opportunities for young people from underserved communities to learn business, leadership, advocacy. Nyla worked 2 afternoons a week, organizing files, attending meetings, learning how systems worked, and how to change them. "You're good at this," Bastian said one afternoon, reviewing her notes on supply chain ethics. "I learned from the best," Nyla replied. He smiled. "Your mama." "Yeah, and you." They worked in comfortable silence for a while. Then Nyla asked the question she'd been holding. "Mr. Crowell?" "Yeah. Why did you let me in that night?" He set down his pen, thought about it. "Honestly, I don't know. Maybe I was curious. Maybe I was annoyed. Maybe some part of me knew I was missing something. And now I'm grateful." "For what?" "That you trusted me, even when I didn't deserve it." Nyla nodded slowly. "I almost didn't," she admitted. "I stood outside your door for 10 minutes. Almost left 3 times. What stopped you?" "You said your door was always open." She met his eyes. "I wanted to believe someone meant it." Bastian's chest tightened. "I'm trying to mean it," he said quietly. Every day. That evening, Bastian walked the floors again. It had become routine. Every week, sometimes twice, learning names, listening, noticing. He stopped on the 3rd floor, a young man mopping near the break room. "Hey," Bastian said. "I'm Bastian." The man looked up, startled. "I know. You're the boss. What's your name?" "Terrence." "How long have you worked here?" 2 months. "How's it going?" Terrence hesitated, then smiled slightly. "Better than my last job. People actually know my name here." Bastian smiled back. "Good. Keep it that way." He kept walking. 40th floor, 41st, 42nd. Stopped at his own office. The lights still on. Inside, on his desk, sat the 2 drawings Nyla had given him. Beside them, letters from workers, emails from families, news articles about policy reforms spreading to other companies. None of it was perfect, but all of it mattered. The next morning, Bastian had a visitor, a journalist, writing a piece on corporate accountability. "Why did you do it?" the journalist asked. "The reforms. The costs. Most CEOs wouldn't." Bastian thought about the question. "Because a 9-year-old girl walked across town at 1 a.m. to tell me I was wrong," he said. "And she was right. That's it. That's everything." The journalist scribbled notes. "Do you think other companies will follow?" "Some already are. And the ones that don't?" Bastian leaned back. Then people like Nyla will keep speaking up. And eventually, someone will listen. You sound optimistic. I'm realistic. Change is slow. Systems resist. But silence only works if we let it. The journalist nodded. Last question. If you could go back to that night, the night Nyla showed up, would you do anything differently? Bastian didn't hesitate. I'd open the door faster. That night, Bastian sat on his porch. Same porch where a little girl once stood, afraid and brave. Same door he almost didn't open. He thought about all the doors still closed, all the voices still waiting, and he made a promise. Not to fix everything, not to save everyone, but to keep listening, to keep the door open, no matter what. Years later, Nyla Reed graduated high school, top of her class, full scholarship, 3 universities fighting for her. Bastian attended the ceremony, sat beside her mama, watched Nyla walk across the stage in a red cap and gown. After, she found him in the crowd. Thank you, she said. For what? For listening. Bastian smiled. Thank you for speaking. They stood together, watching families celebrate, watching futures begin. Hey, Mr. Crowell? Nyla said. Yeah. Your door still open? He laughed. Always. Good, because I'm coming back after college. And we've got more work to do. She walked away, waving. Bastian watched her go, and thought, maybe that's what real power looks like. Not control, not profit, just opening doors, and trusting the right people to walk through. The question still lingers. How many doors are still closed? How many children are still waiting? How many Nylas will it take before we all start listening? The answer depends on you. Nyla graduated from Columbia University on a sunny May afternoon with a degree in social policy and labor rights. She walked across the stage in her cap and gown. Red, of course, while her mama screamed from the audience loud enough to make strangers smile. Bastian sat 3 rows back, clapping until his hands hurt. After the ceremony, Nyla found him near the campus gates. Ready? She asked. For what? She grinned. I told you, we've got work to do. 2 weeks later, Nyla walked into Crowell Logistics headquarters. Not as an intern this time, as Director of Worker Advocacy and Ethics, the youngest director in company history. Some board members had protested, called it charity, called it optics. Bastian overruled them all. She earned this, he'd said flatly. And if you can't see that, you're not paying attention. Nyla's first day started at 8 a.m. sharp. She walked through the lobby, the same lobby where she'd once stood invisible with a mop, wearing a blazer her mama had saved for months to buy. Employees stopped to stare. Some remembered her story. Others just saw a young black woman walking with purpose. Monica met her at the elevator. Welcome back, Monica said warmly. Mr. Crowell's waiting upstairs. They rode to the 43rd floor together. Bastian's office looked the same. Glass walls, river view. But now, pinned to the wall beside his desk, were those 2 crayon drawings. Framed, protected. Bastian stood when she entered. Director Reed, he said formally, then smiled. That sounds good. Feels good too, Nyla replied. They sat, reviewed plans. Nyla had spent the last 4 years studying labor systems, corporate structures, advocacy models. She came prepared with proposals. First priority, Nyla said, flipping through her notes. Expand the worker hotline. It's working, but we need better outreach. People still don't know it exists. Bastian nodded. Done. What else? Partnerships with other companies. We can't fix the entire industry alone. But if we build a coalition, I like it. Keep going. They worked through lunch, then dinner. By 9 p.m., they had a roadmap for the next 2 years. Expanded protections, better pay structures, educational programs, mental health resources, all focused on one principle: people matter more than profit. You know the board will fight some of this, Bastian said. Let them, Nyla replied. We've got the data, we've got the moral high ground, and we've got each other. Bastian smiled. When did you get so tough? I learned from a girl who walked across town at 1 a.m. because nobody else would listen. He laughed, really laughed. Fair enough. 3 months into her new role, Nyla launched Project Open Door, a nationwide initiative partnering with 50 companies to create uniform labor protections. The response was mixed. Some corporations joined immediately. Others resisted. A few fought back publicly, calling it government overreach disguised as corporate policy. Nyla didn't flinch. She appeared on news shows, wrote op-eds, spoke at conferences, always calm, always prepared, always carrying the weight of every invisible worker who came before her. One night, after a particularly brutal interview where a hostile anchor tried to make her look naive, Nyla returned home exhausted. Her mama was waiting with tea and cornbread. "You okay, baby?" her mama asked. "Tired. You don't have to keep fighting, you know? You've done enough." Nyla shook her head. "It's not about enough. It's about keeping the door open for the next person." Her mama smiled, eyes wet. "When did my little girl grow up?" "The night I rang a doorbell at 1 a.m. They sat together in comfortable silence. The apartment was bigger now, nicer. Her mama hadn't worked a night shift in years, but some things stayed the same. The love, the strength, the belief that speaking up mattered. 6 months later, Project Open Door hit a major milestone. 100 companies signed on, policies implemented across 12 states, over 50,000 workers protected by new standards. Bastian called an all-hands meeting to celebrate. The auditorium was packed. Employees, partners, media. He took the stage first. 5 years ago, Bastian began. "I thought success meant efficiency, profit margins, market dominance." The room was silent. "Then a child taught me I was wrong." He paused. "Success isn't what you build. It's who you protect while building it." Applause started slowly, then grew. Bastian gestured to the side of the stage. "I'd like to introduce someone who understood that long before I did. Our Director of Worker Advocacy and Ethics, Nyla Reed." Nyla walked out. The applause turned thunderous. She stood at the podium, looked at the crowd, saw faces that once would have looked past her. Now they were listening. "Thank you," she said simply, "but this isn't about me. It's about every person who ever felt invisible. Every worker told they didn't matter. Every child who had to be brave just to be safe." She scanned the audience. "We've made progress, real progress, but the work isn't done. There are still people afraid to speak up. Still systems designed to keep them quiet." She leaned forward. "So here's what I'm asking. Don't just celebrate today. Go back to your companies, your communities, your families, and ask, whose voice am I not hearing? Whose door is still closed?" The room sat in powerful silence. "Because change doesn't happen from the top down," Nyla continued. "It happens when we all decide to pay attention." She stepped back. The applause was deafening. That evening, Nyla found Bastian on the building's rooftop terrace. He was staring at the city lights, hands in his pockets. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah, just thinking." "About what?" "About how different things could have been if you hadn't knocked on my door." Nyla stood beside him. "But I did. I know, and I'm grateful every single day." They watched the city together. Millions of lights, millions of lives. Somewhere down there, someone was working too hard, being ignored, struggling. But now there were more open doors, more people listening, more chances for courage to find compassion. "You know what the best part is?" Bastian asked. "What?" "You're just getting started." Nyla smiled. "We're just getting started." He nodded. "Yeah, we are. What changes would you make in your community? Drop your ideas below. Your voice matters." 2 years later, Nyla stood in Washington, D.C., testifying before Congress. The hearing room was intimidating. High ceilings, senators arranged in a semicircle, cameras everywhere. But Nyla had testified 3 times before. She knew how this worked. The committee chair, Senator Patricia Okonkwo nodded for her to begin. "Thank you for inviting me," Nyla said. "My name is Nyla Reed, and I'm here to discuss the National Worker Protection Act." She outlined the proposal. Federal standards for labor contracts, mandatory transparency, protection for minors, penalties for violations. Everything she'd learned, everything she'd fought for. Some senators listened intently. Others looked skeptical. Senator James Bradford from Texas leaned forward. "Ms. Reed, with all due respect, you're asking us to impose significant costs on businesses. In this economy, can we really afford that?" Nyla didn't blink. "Senator, I was 9 years old when I worked night shifts cleaning corporate offices. I was cheap labor, invisible, expendable." The room went quiet. "The question isn't can we afford these protections. It's can we afford not to have them." Bradford shifted uncomfortably. Another senator, Maria Delgado from California, smiled slightly. "Ms. Reed, how many companies have adopted your model voluntarily?" 237, as of last month. Murmurs rippled through the room. "And the results? Worker retention up 42%. Productivity up 31%. Lawsuits down 68%. Companies are saving money while treating people better." Senator Okonkwo nodded. "Thank you, Ms. Reed. We'll take this under advisement." The hearing ended. Nyla walked out to find Bastian waiting in the hallway. "How'd it go?" he asked. "Hard to say. Some liked it, some didn't." "You were brilliant." "I was honest." They walked toward the exit together. "You know," Bastian said, "when I first met you, I thought you needed saving. And now I know you were saving me." Nyla smiled. "We saved each other." 6 months later, the National Worker Protection Act passed. Narrow margin, lots of amendments. Not perfect, but it was law. Nyla watched the signing ceremony from her office at Crowell Logistics, tears streaming down her face. Her mama called immediately. "Baby, you did it. We did it, Mama. All of us." That night, celebrations erupted across the country. Workers, advocates, families who'd lived in fear for too long. Bastian threw a party at headquarters. Employees packed the lobby. Music played. People danced. Nyla stood on the balcony overlooking everything, overwhelmed. Monica found her there. "You okay?" Monica asked. "Yeah, just processing." "It's a big moment." "It is." Nyla paused. "But it's not the end." "What do you mean?" "Laws are just words. Implementation is everything. We have to make sure this actually changes lives." Monica smiled. "You're not going to rest, are you?" "Not yet." "Good. Neither are we." The following year, Nyla expanded Project Open Door internationally. She traveled to 12 countries, met with labor organizations, shared models, listened to stories. In Ghana, she met a woman whose daughter worked factory night shifts at 11. In the Philippines, she met a boy who sorted trash 14 hours a day. In Brazil, she met families trapped in cycles that felt unbreakable. She listened, learned, built partnerships, and slowly the movement grew. Not because Nyla was special, because the problem was universal. And once people started listening, they couldn't stop. Bastian, meanwhile, stepped back from day-to-day operations. He created the Crowell Foundation, dedicated to worker rights, education access, and systemic reform. He funded research, supported grassroots organizations, amplified voices that needed platforms. One afternoon, he and Nyla met for coffee. "I've been thinking," Bastian said, "about what comes next." "For the foundation?" "For me." Nyla waited. "I'm stepping down as CEO," he said, "staying on the board, but I want to focus full-time on advocacy work." "Really?" "Yeah. Turns out there's more to life than quarterly earnings." Nyla laughed. "Who are you and what did you do with Bastian Crowell?" He smiled. "That little girl who knocked on my door killed him, and I'm grateful." They sat in comfortable silence. "You changed my life," Bastian said quietly. "You changed mine too." Even, even. That Christmas, Nyla's mama hosted dinner at their house. A real house now, with a backyard and rooms for everyone. Family came, friends, co-workers, and Bastian. He sat at the table, laughing at stories, passing plates, feeling more at home than he had in years. After dinner, Nyla's mama stood. "I want to say something," she announced. Everyone quieted. 10 years ago, my baby walked across town alone in the dark because she believed someone would listen. Her voice shook, and someone did. She looked at Bastian. "You didn't have to open that door, but you did, and it changed everything." Bastian's throat tightened. "Thank you," she said simply. He nodded, unable to speak. Nyla raised her glass. "To open doors," she said. Everyone echoed. "To open doors." They drank. They laughed. They celebrated not just what they'd accomplished, but what was still possible. Because the work would never be finished, but it would always be worth it. If you could open one door for someone today, what would it be? Share below and inspire others. 5 years after the National Worker Protection Act passed, Nyla stood in the United Nations Assembly Hall. She'd been invited to speak at the Global Labor Summit. Leaders from 89 countries gathered to discuss worker rights in the modern economy. Nyla walked to the podium wearing red. Always red. Her mama sat in the audience. Bastian beside her. Monica, former co-workers, people whose lives had changed because one person decided to speak. "Good morning," Nyla began. "I'm Nyla Reed, and I used to be invisible." The translation devices hummed softly as her words reached every corner of the room. "I was 9 years old, working night shifts, told I didn't matter, that I was cheap, replaceable, easy to ignore." She paused. "But I'm standing here today because one person listened, and that listening created a ripple that became a wave." She outlined the progress, the policies, the partnerships, the lives changed, but then she shifted. "We've accomplished a lot, but the work isn't done. Right now, somewhere in the world, a child is working when they should be sleeping. A parent is choosing between medicine and rent. A worker is afraid to speak because the system punishes honesty." Her voice grew stronger. "So I'm asking you, all of you, to do what one man did for me 10 years ago. Pay attention. Ask questions. Open doors." She looked directly at the assembly. "Because the most powerful thing any of us can do is make sure no one feels invisible ever again." The room erupted in applause, standing ovation. Leaders from countries that rarely agreed on anything stood together, unified by a simple truth: people matter. After the summit, Nyla received hundreds of messages. From workers, from advocates, from children who'd heard her story and found courage. One message stood out. It was from a girl in Indonesia, 12 years old, working garment factory shifts. She'd seen Nyla's speech online. "Thank you for showing me I matter," the message said. "I'm gonna speak up too." Nyla read it 3 times. Then she called Bastian. "We need to expand again," she said. "Where?" "Everywhere. Every factory, every farm, every place where people feel invisible." Bastian smiled on the other end. "When do we start?" "Tomorrow." Over the next 3 years, the Crowell Foundation partnered with international organizations to create the Visible Workers Initiative, a global network supporting labor rights, education access, and economic mobility. They opened resource centers in 23 countries, trained advocates in 47 languages, connected millions of workers to legal support, education programs, and safe reporting channels. It wasn't easy. Some governments resisted. Some corporations fought back. Some communities were skeptical. But slowly, relentlessly, change happened. On Nyla's 30th birthday, her mama threw a surprise party. The backyard was packed. Friends from childhood, colleagues, people she'd helped, people who'd helped her. And in the back, sitting on a bench, was Bastian. Older now, gray in his hair, but eyes still sharp, still listening. Nyla found him there as the sun set. "You hiding?" she asked. "Observing," he corrected. "It's a good party. Mama outdid herself. She's proud of you." I'm proud of her. They sat in comfortable silence, watching people laugh and dance and celebrate. Can I tell you something? Bastian asked. Always. That night you showed up at my door? I almost didn't answer. Nyla looked at him. I was annoyed, he continued. Busy. Thought it was a prank. My finger was on the security call button. What stopped you? Honestly, I don't know. Maybe fate. Maybe luck. Maybe I just finally paid attention to something that mattered. Nyla smiled. I'm glad you did. Me too. He pulled something from his pocket. An envelope. What's this? Nyla asked. Open it. Inside was a check. Massive. Made out to the Visible Workers Initiative. Bastian. It's the last of my Crowell stock, he said. I want it to go where it matters most. Tears filled Nyla's eyes. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Because you taught me that wealth without purpose is just numbers on a screen. But wealth with purpose? That changes the world. Nyla hugged him tight. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. Thank you, he replied, for knocking. That night, after everyone left, Nyla sat on her porch. The same kind of porch where she'd once stood terrified and brave. She thought about the girl she'd been, small, exhausted, invisible, and the woman she'd become, strong, heard, determined to make sure no one ever felt the way she once did. Her phone buzzed. Message from the girl in Indonesia. I spoke up. They listened. Things are changing here. Thank you. Nyla smiled through tears. She replied, Thank you for being brave. Keep speaking. The world needs your voice. She looked up at the stars. Somewhere doors were opening. Somewhere voices were rising. Somewhere a child was finding courage. And that made everything worth it. Your voice matters. Your story matters. Share how this inspired you. Let's keep opening doors together. Subscribe so you never miss stories that change lives. Hit the bell. Drop your thoughts. Let's build a world where everyone is visible. 20 years later, Nyla Reed stood in her office at the International Labor Rights Council, an organization she'd founded, now operating in 112 countries. The walls were covered with photos, children she'd helped, workers who'd found justice, families who'd escaped exploitation, and in the center, framed carefully, 2 crayon drawings. Thank you for listening. What happens when doors stay open? A knock interrupted her thoughts. Come in, she called. A young girl entered, maybe 10 years old, nervous, clutching her backpack. Ms. Reed, the girl said quietly. I'm Kiana, from the Youth Advocacy Program. Hi, Kiana. What can I do for you? Kiana hesitated, then spoke in a rush. There's a factory near my school. Kids work there sometimes. After hours. Nobody checks. I wanted to tell someone, but I didn't know who would listen. Nyla's heart squeezed. She knelt down. I level. I'm listening, she said. Kiana's eyes filled with tears. Really? Really? Tell me everything. An hour later, Nyla made calls, contacted local authorities, dispatched investigators, started the process that would shut down another exploitation site. Kiana watched with wide eyes. You're really going to fix it? She asked. We're going to fix it, Nyla corrected. You did the hard part. You spoke up. I was scared. Being scared and being brave aren't opposites. Sometimes they're the same thing. Kiana smiled slightly. Can I show you something? Nyla asked. She led Kiana to the wall of photos. Every person here was once where you are. Afraid, uncertain, not sure if anyone would listen. She pointed to one photo in particular. A little girl in a red dress, standing on a porch at night. That's you, Kiana asked. That's me. A long time ago. What happened? Someone listened, and it changed my life. Kiana stared at the photo. Will things change for the kids at the factory? Yes, because you made sure someone was listening. Later that evening, Nyla visited her mama. Still in the same house. Still cooking cornbread. Still the strongest person Nyla knew. They sat on the porch together watching the sunset. Busy day? Her mama asked. A girl came to see me, reported a factory using child labor. Her mama smiled, just like her mama once did. Just like. They sat in peaceful silence. You ever think about that night? Her mama asked. When you walked across town? Every day. Scared me to death when I found your note. I know. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. You did what needed doing. Nyla leaned her head on her mama's shoulder. I miss him sometimes, she said quietly. Bastian had passed away 2 years earlier. Peacefully, surrounded by family, found family, the kind you choose. He'd left everything to the foundation. His funeral was attended by thousands. Workers, executives, people whose lives he'd touched. Nyla had given the eulogy. He'd be proud of you, her mama said now. I hope so. I know so. That night, Nyla wrote in her journal, something she'd done every day since she was 13. Today, I met a girl who reminded me why this work matters. She wrote. She was scared, but she spoke anyway, just like I once did. Bastian used to say that opening one door creates a path for others. I didn't understand at first, but now I see it everywhere. Every person who speaks up makes it easier for the next. Every door that opens shows another door can too. We're not done. We'll never be done. But we're closer, and that's enough. She closed the journal, looked at the crayon drawings on her desk. She kept copies everywhere, and smiled, because somewhere tonight, a child was finding courage. Somewhere a door was opening. Somewhere someone was listening. And the work continued. The final scene. Nyla, now 50 years old, stood on stage at the 50th anniversary of the National Worker Protection Act. Her hair was gray. Her hands showed years of work, but her voice was still strong. 50 years ago, she said, I was a little girl who believed someone would listen, and someone did. She looked at the audience. Thousands of faces, young and old, every color, every background. Today, because of that one moment of courage, mine and his, millions of people live better lives, work safer jobs, have voices that matter. She paused. But this isn't the end. It's just one chapter. Your chapter is still being written. She pointed to the audience. So I'm asking you, what door will you open? What voice will you hear? What courage will you honor? She smiled. Because 50 years from now, someone will be standing here talking about what you did today. The crowd stood. Applause thundered. And somewhere in the audience, a young girl wearing a red dress whispered to her mother, I want to be like her someday. Her mother smiled. Then speak up when it matters. Listen when others speak. And never let anyone tell you you're invisible. The girl nodded. And the cycle continued. This is where our story ends, but yours is just beginning. What will you do to make sure everyone feels visible? Share your commitment below. Subscribe to keep these stories alive. Hit the notification bell so you never miss inspiration that changes lives. Comment where you're watching from and what the story meant to you. Together, we can make sure every door stays open, every voice gets heard, and every person knows they matter. Thank you for being part of this journey. Now go out there and open a door for someone. The world is waiting.